You're listening to the Chasing Tails Outdoor Podcast, where when you can't be in the outdoors, we bring it to you. Welcome back to another episode of the Chasing Tails Outdoor Podcast. If you're just joining us for the first time, my name is Walt, and zooming in from the other side of the state is my co-host Chase. Dude, you sit, as we record this, moments away. I mean, it's got to feel like moments because it's been years in the making, moments away from going to the land of milk and honey.
Yes, I am 4 days. 4 days, and I will be in the land of the milk and honey. Iowa, the Mecca, as I like to call it, for a rut hunt. So I am super excited, a little nervous, a little anxious too. I've never been in the state of Iowa at all, so it's going to be new on multiple fronts. But from talking to people that are trying to get intel and everything else, everything I get from them is going to blow my mind. So I'm prepared to have my mind blown while I'm there. And if that happens, then that'll be just as successful as a kill while I'm up there, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, so I did some quick research, and it appears on the website that your tag is redeemable immediately for a Pope and Young buck of your choice, but you have the opportunity to upgrade throughout the week to a Boone and Crockett. So I don't know what you're going to default to, but looks like you got options.
Yep, options are there. So if it gets me excited and looks good, then I might be flinging an arrow its direction at any given time during the hunt. So we've got quite a few days slated out, and we'll just see how it works out. So it could be one of those deals where I'm in Iowa for 10 minutes and have a buck on the ground, or it may take me the entire time to get on a deer while I'm there. So I'm looking forward to it, and like I said, it's just a different caliber of deer. It's going to be, you're used to seeing a lot of scrub bucks here in Florida, and then every now and then a good one kind of steps out, and pretty much I'll probably be thinking they're all good ones in Iowa. So I'm looking forward to that, and maybe seeing some like real rut action and getting a rattle and grunting at deer, and seeing that all play out is, I think, going to be a good time. Slated for some pretty decent weather, at least right now. It looks like it's going to be in the low 40s in the morning, and maybe get up to 60 during the day. So not horrible for an old Florida boy who doesn't really like the cold anyways. So
Well, the good news is you're going to have all that brand new scree gear to keep you warm and cozy. And watch this natural segue. You ready, Chase?
Ready.
If you want to save some money on the scree gear, go to screegear.com and use the promo code Chasing Tails, TALES, all caps or all lowercase, and save 15% on your next order. How about that?
Oh yeah, that was money.
Oh, man. Well, you know what? If we're going to do that, we have to thank the people that also have made this possible, our Patreon members. And if you don't know what Patreon is, it is a crowdfunding source for us to raise money to go towards the operating costs of this podcast, such as Chase going to Iowa. And if you're willing to support the show, if you want to go that route, we send you some free merch depending on what tier you're in. We enter you into our quarterly giveaways, which, we give away, depends on each quarter, anywhere between $200 and $400 worth of stuff 4 times a year. You're entered just for being a patron of the show. You get access to our Marco Polo chat group, which is this wonderful support group for the outdoorsmen. I mean, just motivation, helpful tips. People it's a great little community that we've built. And if you're interested in doing that, check out the show notes below. There's a link, patreon.com/Chasing Tails Outdoors, and we'd be glad to have you over there. You guys are definitely helping Chase get out there. You've helped us get camera gear, and we could not do it without you. So I'm excited to just continue to bring you guys content.
Yeah, it's like you mentioned before. It's good to be able to be in constant contact with a lot of our patrons through our Marco Polo group. And we get like live updates on their hunts and what's going on with them, and just going back and forth. And I think that's just like you mentioned. We've kind of built a good community on that group, and it keeps growing. And we'd love to have other people join that group. So now's a good time to check it out. because
That's
our,
right.
our giveaway is you get some Scree items, you get an Alps pack, and we're throwing in some other goodies
That's right.
for this quarter's giveaway. So what are you waiting on?
Well, this week's episode is a good one. You talk about a guy that found success immediately and tagged out in a matter of moments. He didn't expect to even during the hunt as it unfolded. It's an awesome story. Ethan from the Stick Boys. You guys may be familiar with them if you're big with traditional archery, but if you're not, a couple guys out of Western North Carolina that pursue just about everything it looks like with longbows. And Ethan was a great guest. I tell you, I said after we hit end, I said, man, I think it felt like I was talking to a good old friend that entire phone call. Sometimes when you get on the phone with somebody you haven't talked to before, you have to feel them out and everybody gets to know each other. Boy, we took off running with it.
Yeah, there was a good connection there. And one of the things that he kind of mentioned during that podcast was hot feed trees, and we kind of been talking about that a little bit. So hopefully we're slowly building up to Walt finally getting Warren Womack on the show so he can really teach us what a hot feed tree is.
That's right. We're going to build this as a playlist of hot feed trees. We'll make it a 3-part series when we have Warren on. Yeah, I couldn't believe it when he mentioned hot feed trees. I was like, aha, validation.
Exactly.
So, but well, let's keep this one short because it's a fun episode. I want to get these guys to it. How about it?
Let's do it.
All right, Ethan, dude, how you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
I'm well. Before we hit start, it sounded like you were having to deal with some inclement weather. What's going on?
Just a little bit of rain passing through this area, so dealing with the rainy day blues today. Wishing I was in a stand.
If it wasn't raining, would you have gotten to hunt?
Yeah.
Oh man,
this
is
my
worst.
last week where I work the normal. I work 7:30 to 4:30 every day, so this is the last week of the year before the whole daylight savings thing, where I can fit in a sit after work. But after this week, it's weekends and occasional mornings when I can slip into work a little late.
Yeah, I'm working remotely, and I live across the street from one of my primary hunting spots, so I think I can still probably get in some brief observation sits from afar. But you're right, this is kind of like the last time that anybody who works some kind of regular hours, they don't get to get out there and enjoy those afternoon hunts, and that's kind of always a depressing point for me because it kind of marks for a lot of, at least it used to mark kind of like the halfway point for a lot of people's seasons as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think you deer hunters would be the first ones on board with doing away with the daylight savings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we should start a petition, Ethan.
I'll be your first signature, man. I mean, every year I'm with you. It's like it kind of dawns on you this time of year where it's like, gosh, deer season's kind of slipping away already.
Yeah. Oh, man. So we've got a heck of a story to talk about today. I don't know that anybody has had a better day in the woods than you managed to have back in September. At least in recent memory, for sure. I mean, what you accomplished was awesome. But before we get to that, I want to kind of introduce you and the platform that you have. Ethan Henson, you're one of the founders of the Stick Boys. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about who you are and the platform that you run?
Yeah, man. So Stick Boys, number one thing is we're a few rednecks that love to have fun. In college, this whole thing started with just me and Dalton. Dalton's kind of the front runner of the Stick Boys. Dalton Lewis. He in college, you have a whole lot more free time before you become an adult to spend time in a tree. So we weren't into the whole, college scene. So if we had breaks between classes or mornings, evenings, anytime, we were hitting a tree or we were chasing turkeys. We were finding something to do. So it started out with just as a joke, so we could look back and watch our videos. We'd get our cell phones out when a deer came in, and we'd be sitting in the same tree and we'd just film each other. And that progressed into getting a little handy cam and getting a tree arm, and our friends would like to watch the videos, and it just kept climbing a little bit and not really even meaning for anything to come of it. And I remember Dalton texted me one day. He was walking on the here at Appalachian State, There's a little bread company here. It's called Stick Boy Bread Company. And he's like, dude, I just saw a sticker. He's like, the Stick Boys. He's like, if anything was to ever come of this, the Stick Boys. It's like, okay, I don't think anything's going to come of it, but cool. That sounds awesome. And I mean, this last year or two, it's where we've been very blessed. I mean, we've been able to get some good deer down on film, and I mean, it's done a whole lot more than we ever thought it would do. I mean, the support and the people reaching out to us has blown our mind because, like I said, we're a couple rednecks that like to have fun. That we figured out how to shoot a stick bow pretty good, and we've had success the past few years, and we like to have fun doing it, and just happen to have a camera with us. And we've had the podcast come along this year, and that's doing really well. And I don't know, man. It's blowing our mind every single day. We're super grateful for where this is heading and where we've already come from. I mean, for absolutely no ambitions of being any kind of influence on anybody, to having a platform to push the traditional side of archery and the public land thing. We're just super blessed with it.
That's awesome. So, can you clarify what a stick bow is versus just the terminology of a trad bow?
Well, I mean, that's just kind of a general term I use. Me and Dalton both shoot Omega longbows. It's Kegan McCabe. He's out of Pennsylvania. He builds them. Great company. But we shoot longbows. First traditional bow I had an old Bear recurve, but I mean, we usually stick to the more traditional side of it. We like the wooden bows. I mean, I know some people like to shoot a metal riser and stuff like that, but we're stubborn and we just like shooting the just a plain old longbow. And those Omegas they're deadly. So I don't know if it's arrogance or stupidity or what it is, but we seem to just stick with or just take off with these longbows and not put them back down.
Why the stick bow over compound? Have you hunted with a compound before, or was it?
Yeah, so
okay.
I killed my first deer with a bow. I was probably in 7th or 8th grade. I was shooting a little PSE compound like everybody and their brother starts out with that's ever bow hunted. And I mean, I was eat up with it after that. Ended up shooting a Matthews for a while, and my story's kind of backwards from a lot of people. So many people. I know Dalton was in this boat, and not trying to sound arrogant or anything like that, but he kind of got bored with the compound.
Sure.
Hunters are a weird breed. We always like a different challenge, and he started shooting one, and mine is completely opposite. I got so eat up with target panic. I could still kill a deer, but to be honest, I don't know how ethical I was in the woods at that point. I mean, I could not rest my pen on a target, on a deer. It was like I had a hand grenade. And so I was shooting with Dalton one day, and he's like, man, why don't you just try a longbow? He's like, I mean, a lot of people snap shoot and are really successful with it, and you might be able to beat this target panic. I was like, heck, why not? So he found me that old Bear recurve. I think he got it on Trad Gang or something like that for $75. And I was shooting some old aluminum arrows and a way too live broad. Horrible arrow setup. Had no idea what we were doing. And I remember the first year I went, took it, or the first hunt I ever had it. Had a bachelor group of bucks come in, and I never got it off the bow hanger. I just sat there and watched him like at 15 yards and said, there's no way I could hit him. I'm not even going to try. So ended up, we had, like I said, this was early college years. We have a bow club, and it's about 30 minutes from my house, about 5 from Dalton's. And all winter one year, every evening we'd go to that bow club. They have an indoor range, and we'd shoot every single evening. And from the first deer I killed, I think it was that next fall, I killed a deer with it. I haven't touched my compound since. I couldn't tell you where it's at right now. The thrill, it brought back I was getting down on myself with the bow hunting because, that target panic, I don't know if you've ever had it, but that's a beast to try to get rid of.
Yep.
So, I was getting down on bow hunting, and from the time I killed that deer I have not looked back as far as hunting with a compound. I have nothing against it. More power to you. I absolutely. I mean, when I was into it, I was into it. But I was losing my joy for bow hunting, and that brought it back tenfold.
Yeah.
Right. Did your strategy have to change when you switched to the stick bow as opposed to the compound? Like,
Absolutely. It went from I got to figure out how to get 20 to 30 yards from these deer to when I first started, I needed to be about 7 or 8 yards from them. So it went. I mean, my entire idea of hunting completely changed, and I mean, I feel like it's made me a much better hunter. And I don't know if that's completely from shooting a longbow, but baiting's legal in North Carolina at one point in time. I mean, I lived and died by a corn pile, and that changed dramatically because a deer's a different breed when it's in a corn pile, and you're hunting a different kind of deer when they're in a corn pile. They're on high alert most of the time, and it's a whole lot harder to get away with drawing a bow back at 7 yards as opposed to 25 yards for a corn pile. So it got me away from baiting, and I think all in all, it made me a better hunter. It made me learn how to hunt the deer instead of letting the bait pile do the hunting for me.
Yeah, that's interesting. You talked about the target panic and everything. I went through that. Our listeners know that story inside and out. But it was a very long process that Chase actually helped me work through. His patience in that regard was unreal. But I can tell you that having recently kind of been reintroduced into the traditional lifestyle or stick bow, whatever you want to, what terminology you have preference for, shooting is just a little more enjoyable with the recurve. It doesn't feel like work. Whereas when you shoot the compound bow for me, and maybe you feel similarly or differently, but when I shot the compound, it felt like a very, very serious matter. I had to hit this point, hit this, do that, and you do a lot of the similar things with the recurve, but it feels more fluid and fun and quick when you're shooting a recurve. And I find myself gravitating towards the recurve more and more because I'll go out back with my wife and she'll be drinking a beverage and talking to me, and I'll sling a couple arrows down range and she can talk to me. Whereas whenever I shoot the compound, it's kind of like when Walter draws, everybody sits quiet for a second and then I shoot.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the whole experience was more enjoyable for me because, like you said, it's way more laid back. You're not going to take a compound walking through the woods and stump shoot.
That's
You might,
true.
but I mean that, and I mean, I had a lot of target panic with that recurve when I first started, and Dalton helped me a whole lot with that. And like you said, I mean, we could stay in that bow shop, and I mean, we shot thousands upon thousands of arrows that winter, and you didn't even realize you were shooting. I mean, we'd go kick our feet up, grab your bow, shoot a few arrows, and I mean, that's still a process. It's not something that you can pick up, and I mean, you might be able to pick it up and go kill a deer the next day, but it it took some time and people that are a whole lot smarter than me watching videos of them and getting advice from them. But the process was more enjoyable. It wasn't so structured and everything. Like you said, everything has to be perfect. You gotta hit your pin has to be perfect here. All the new gadgets coming out. I mean, I have no gadgets to worry about. That's our number one joke is we throw our bows in the back seat when we're leave the woods, and 9 times out of 10 they fall over.
Right.
And we'll say, "Oh, my sights are knocked off." Yeah, I mean it's a way more laid back thing, and everything is what you make it, I guess.
Yeah. Do you feel like what's your and I know this kind of changes with situations, but what's your furthest range you'll take a shot on game with the stick bow?
I don't know if I've ever killed a deer past 20 yards, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, I think right at 20 yards is probably where that's like a wheelhouse. Anything inside of 20 yards, I'm super confident. Anything outside of that, it's got to be absolutely perfect scenario. I've got to be shooting good at the time, because it's like anything. You'll go through phases where you're shooting really good and where you feel like you've never touched a bow before. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be the mindset I'm in. It's going to be what deer I'm shooting at. I mean, the animal I'm shooting at, but anything outside of 20, it has to be perfect for me to even try. I just
Sure.
feel like I owe it to the animal to not shoot it in the hind end.
So you're
Right.
taking getting close to a whole new level.
Yeah, I mean, I have to.
Yeah.
I don't have a choice. That's why we like hunting thickets and stuff like that. That takes it out the 30-yard shots out of the equation. If
Right.
you can't see them, you can't shoot them.
Exactly. What kind of arrow setup are you running with that longbow?
So we just this year we started shooting the day six or a day six setup. Just um, in the past, we started with aluminum, and like I said, we had a horrible arrow setup at the beginning. We had no idea what we were doing. Didn't understand the whole FOC thing, and I don't know how y'all feel about that. I don't like. I think that term's overused way too much. There's some truth to it. You have some weight up front. That's going to help. So we're shooting. Everything we shoot is almost identical. Like Dalton's my arrow builder. I ain't gonna lie, sit here and try to make it sound like I'm a master at that. I order a dozen arrows and I lay them on his doorstep, and he calls me fussing an hour later because he's got to fletch some arrows. But this past weekend, I just went in there and took some of his because we shoot identical stuff. We're shooting the 500s, the 500 spine day sixes. We got 100 grain outsert up front, and we're shooting the 200 grain Evo XLs. So we're sitting about 560 something in total arrow weight with over 300 up front, and it has changed the ball game this year. In the past, we've shot just no extra weight up front as far as the outsert goes, and we've shot 3-blade, tried shooting different 2 blades, but I mean, I'm telling you what, man, you get that weight up there. I had to see it to believe it, but it was a long time since I'd blown through a deer with a longbow, and I haven't had an arrow slow up this year. I'm having to dig it out of the ground on the other side.
That's awesome, man. That's Chase. Chase and I have that debate a lot of times. We've got a couple friends who are like they've built arrows that are just like what you described. In fact, I still think Nick has never found that one arrow he shot earlier. It just disappeared. It's just gone into the brush. Chase kind of sits on the different end of the spectrum. I don't think you have like a quote unquote heavy arrow build, do you, Chase?
No, it wouldn't be considered heavy. I probably will go a little bit heavier. The FOC is not bad, but as far as like the total arrow weight, it's still sitting slightly below 500 grains, which I think 500 you're kind of sniffing heavy now, and a lot of it's pushing more 600. We even have guys that are shooting like 715 grains right now out of their bows. I'm not willing to go that far, but they almost need to be there. But they're probably getting speeds like your recurve is with a 715 grain arrow. So maybe they should consider going to the stick as opposed to the compound if they're going to shoot an arrow that heavy.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch a lot of this stuff on YouTube, the entire everybody's moving towards this back to a heavy arrow. I mean, I think the hunting industry went towards the speed world for a while. And I mean, you turn on the outdoor channel now and you've got some of these guys that are shooting this super big expandable head with a really light arrow. And I mean, they're shooting 70 pounds and they're getting 5 inches of penetration. And I'm shooting a 40-pound longbow and having to dig the arrow out of the other side. I mean, there's something to having that weight and having a cut-on contact broadhead to where, I mean, Ashby had it right many, many years ago.
That's right.
I think the hunting world's finally starting to hopefully get back to that because you'd be hard-pressed to find too many people that don't have a rage horror story. Not to bash, like, just them, but, gosh, I don't know. There's a whole lot of things to go wrong with that, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've shot light stuff for years, but and I was always kind of obsessed with speed, mainly because if you found kind of that 400 grain arrow setup, you weren't really having to compensate for arrow drop. I mean, anything out to 32, 33 yards, you could pretty much put one pin in it and you were good to go. And with Florida deer, I never had a problem blowing through a Florida deer with an expandable 400 grain setup, but you're talking about deer that are a lot smaller than your normal deer, and I knew to stay away from the shoulder. So I would never get near the shoulder. It'd always be like a kind of like a back double lung shot is what I would always focus on with that. And you're not leaving yourself a lot of leeway if you mess up. I think that's the whole key with some of these big, heavy arrow setups is, which kind of the Ranch Fairy talks about, is your plan B arrows, where not everything goes to plan. Deer can move, they drop, they do all kinds of things in a shot that we really don't see unless you film your hunts, because a lot of times you don't see that deer drop 6 inches or 4 inches or whatever unless you can go back and watch it in super slow motion. So I think that's the whole key to these heavy arrow setups is it gets a lot more stuff done than just your expandable lightweight arrows do.
Oh yeah, I mean it makes up for a whole lot of human error. I mean,
Yep.
Dalton shot a 9 point. It's been about a month ago, and deer was slightly quartering towards him, and I mean he blew through the front shoulder and came out like right in the armpit of the other side, and that's not many arrow setups can do that out of a 40-pound bow.
God.
But I mean, at the same time, you talk about, I mean, it's hard to get away from, or not get away from, but it's hard to ignore it because for so long, that's everything that was being pushed. I mean, you saw a bow commercial. That's the number one selling point is how fast is the bow?
Right.
And I mean, when you want to get down to it, how important is that really? I mean, as long as it's getting the arrow there, when the deer's still there, that's going to do the job.
That's right.
And I mean, you still get some of that stuff out there. Like I said, I'm not trying to bash people, but I mean, you see these crossbow commercials where it says you can put an inch group at 100 yards. Well, that's awesome, but that deer ain't going to be there by the time that bolt gets to it. So don't try it.
No.
I think it's interesting how it's swung back and forth because my mentors grew up when recurves were the standard. Long bows, stick bows, trad life was the standard, and then the generation right before me, compounds became a thing, but compounds were always clunky, and there really wasn't much of an advantage because the let-off wasn't anything near what it is today. The speeds weren't anything near what it was today, so it was one of those things where you kind of had that vying back and forth between, well, why go to a compound when the recurve works, has always served me well, but late 90s, early 2000s, parallel limbs start popping up and new technologies start increasing that speed. And you're right, dude. I came about in that era of 400 feet per second. That was the ceiling. Well, first it started off with 300. And then, we shattered that, and suddenly people like High Valley or High Country Archery was trying to, with 5.6 grain arrows, trying to hit that ceiling of 400 feet per second. But it was new and exciting, and it sold bows, a lot of bows every year.
Absolutely. And I mean, there's no telling in 10 years what kind of bows are going to be on the market.
That's right.
And from the time to tell you how long it's been since I was like shopping for compounds and stuff, my compound is a Matthews Reason. I think those were popular in like 2008. So
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you hardly what's on the market now, but every now and then you see commercials. What the heck even is that thing?
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that stayed constant is that old stick and string. There's still going to be a dummy out there that'll shoot that thing.
Well, and I also think it's kind of, if you look at how much some of these new bows cost, I haven't done it in a while. Chase just bought a new bow, but for as much as you spend on some of these things, man, there are some custom recurve and stick bow and longbow manufacturers out there that for the same money, you've got something you might hand down to multiple generations. I mean, like genuine works of art instead of just a black and green something.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to that financial comfort yet to where
Yeah,
I
me
can
either.
start buying those. But I can sure admire them.
That's right. I know they're there.
We like to stay with the the more simple bows, but they're absolute killers.
Oh man, that's awesome. Um, so let's kind of talk about let's set the stage for the carnage that happened in late September this year. Kind of tell everybody a little bit about where you hunt, maybe that hunt or the surrounding area. What were you keying in on? What's the habitat like? Kind of set the stage for everybody.
Yeah, man. So 90% of our hunting happens in the mountains in North Carolina. We're right near Boone. So it's what we've grown up hunting. I'm not gonna say that's all I know to hunt, but that's what I know to hunt better than anything else. So super steep and depends on the time of year. Early season, about like anywhere, I'm focusing on feed trees and still when I killed those deer, kind of still summer pattern but number one key factor was finding the hot feed tree for the year, and that could change from year to year. This year I had a whole lot more success on red oaks than white oaks. My spots, it's a hit or miss on who you're talking to. It's kind of a weird acorn crop around here. I saw a lot of red oaks and not many white oaks dropping around here. Um, Move on later in the season. It's about like anywhere you're hunting transitions. You're going to want to know, you're going to go or want to hunt where the bucks are going to be cruising and such. So I don't really have to worry about that this year because we only get 2 buck tags. So I took care of that pretty early. But that time of year, I was 100% focused on feed trees. I do put out mineral sights about midsummer and run cameras on them. So I did know both of those bucks were there, but they were never there at the same time. Um, and I was hunting over a screaming hot red oak. Uh, Killed both of those deer under that tree that morning. I was hunting out of a permanent set, I guess you'd call it, just a hang on stand. But I was super lazy and didn't take it down from last year. I had some bucks that were still coming to that mineral site on into the season, and so I'd hung that stand over that mineral site, and just so happened that the red oak behind it was the hottest tree on the property. Um, Around here, you're not going to get big chunks of land. I mean, if you have a 100-acre tract to hunt, then you've got a big place to hunt. You kind of got to work with what you've got when it comes to that. You don't have that much play when it comes to diverse habitats and stuff like that. So, um, but even that piece of property, man, it's every year it's a different tree that's hot. And I just got lucky with it this year that happened to be right next to that set. So all I did was move that stand around to the other side of the tree, and I was hunting that tree. I think it was like at 12 yards, I think, to the base of that tree.
So this is kind of funny to me because the last episode we just dropped, we talked about how I discovered what a hot feed tree looks like.
Yeah.
That's not something that maybe I had done it in the past, but I had never consciously found and recognized that I was on a hot feed tree. How long have you hunted quote unquote hot feed trees?
Several years, probably. Well, I had to start focusing on it once I got away from baiting.
Right.
Um, if you want to kill an early season deer, you better be figuring out what they're eating. Because in the past, growing up early, when I was early in my bow hunting career, I guess you'd say, it wasn't. I didn't care. I didn't care what a deer was naturally eating because I was going to put some food out there. So when I started shooting the stick bow, like I said earlier, I think that's what made me a better hunter is I had to start learning what the deer was going to do on its own. So keying in on stuff like that I never paid attention to in the past. Never realized how valuable some leaves that were kind of moved around and a few piles of deer poop were, but that's the difference in being in them and not being in them for sure.
So so is that something you just stumbled on your own, or did you have somebody kind of point that out to you? What how do you, because the only person I've ever really heard talk about feed trees is Warren Womack. I'm sure you're familiar with that name.
Yeah.
But it's not. I don't mean to like. despair. I'm sure somebody's going to cringe when I say this. It's not a super popular technique, right? Like
Right.
there aren't entire YouTube channels dedicated to finding a hot feed tree like there are beast tactics and kayak access and stuff like that. Have you noticed that the hot any kind of pattern to what a hot feed tree looks like or species among that?
I mean, if you're under the right tree, you're going to see a lot of different animals in the woods there. It's a deer's not the only thing that's going to be eating those acorns by any means.
Right.
And as far as who pointed me in that direction, a lot of my hunting techniques. I hope he doesn't listen to this. No offense to y'all, but Dalton, I'm telling you, he's taught me a whole lot, and I really hope he doesn't hear this. But I mean, a lot. I picked up a lot of things by just walking behind him in the woods and paying attention, because he's a really good hunter, and I think he actually he talked with Ward Womack just the other day, but yeah, he's the one that points that kind of stuff out, and just over the years, you kind of develop your own tactics with it. And, with that one, it was super obvious that that's where everything on that piece of property wanted to be. It wanted to be under that tree.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the science part of it, I don't know. I don't know if it was there was a difference in the acorns or why, but sometimes it can be. We make it a whole lot more difficult than it is. If you see that a deer wants to be under that tree, go hunt that tree, man.
Right.
Like I don't care what old Bobby thinks down the road. Say, well, he didn't have to do anything too special. Yeah, well, the deer were there, so I went there.
No, I was kind of relating that. I mean, because in Florida, Florida's basically a baiting state as well. I mean, you can put out feeders and food plots and all of those things. And I don't think a lot of, especially your private land hunters, focus on them hot feed trees really as much either when they can go throw out a corn pile or they focus more on their feeders. And I know a lot of guys that like they focus on acorns and things like that, but it's just that okay, there's acorns, the tree's dropping acorns, so I'm going to hunt that tree, and they're not really diving into what you mentioned, like is the ground all ruffled up, is there deer poop in the area, and then they'll put cameras on some of these trees, and they're like, man, no deer are coming to this tree, but yet they'll still keep hunting on it just because it's dropping acorns. And I think the real thing is just for some reason there is that feed tree out there that everything wants to go to. Maybe it's a comfort thing, or maybe it's just something within the soil that made those acorns taste better than others. Or I think I saw Catman or something. He did kind of a thing on acorns on YouTube about like worms and stuff can get in them, and the deer don't really prefer those acorns. So I guess it could just be a total combination of all these things that make all of these animals kind of flock to this one tree. The key is just getting out there, and I think you've got to put boots on the ground and scouting to be able to find those trees and maybe be able to move, kind of like Warren Womack does, is he'll find a hot feed tree and then it may last for a little bit, but then he's got to move on to the next one.
Right. Yeah, I mean, a lot of that comes with it is basic, and I mean, people will probably laugh when I say this, is knowing what acorn or what kind of oak tree it is. There's a lot of people who set up on an oak tree that deer has zero desire to eat that. Like, we have chestnut oaks around here, and you can walk through knee-deep chestnut acorns, and a deer ain't going to touch that. And most of the time, if you find a white oak, it's going to be hot. But like I said, white oaks were kind of sparse this year, so a red oak's the next best thing. And I mean, in years past, I've really walked past a lot of red oaks, but this year that seemed to be the one that the deer wanted. And I've heard that from several people, that if you could find a red oak that was dropping pretty hard, you were going to find the deer.
Yeah.
What type of red oak are you referring to? A live oak or?
Oh gosh, I have no
water
idea. What we
oak?
call them is a red oak.
Okay.
Yeah. So your live oak chase is actually a white oak variety. But
I thought it was a red oak.
no, it's part of the white oak. It's part of the white oak family. I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty certain it is because the conventional wisdom in Southeast Georgia, where I had stumbled, it's where I happened to be when I stumbled upon my first feed tree deal. Um, I was checking live oaks because I knew they were preferred. The common wisdom over there was if you find a hot live oak, they'll prefer that live oak over like your water oaks and stuff like that. And I found hot live oaks, and the ground was covered up in acorns. I was like, man, this is weird. And then I found a small grove of water oaks, and the ground was all scratched back, Ethan. I mean, just completely scratched back, tracks everywhere, and that happened to be the hot food source despite 400 yards the other direction with adequate cover. There was this huge grove of live oaks that was just raining acorns. And that was like, for me, it was kind of jarring because I had spent all this time hunting over what I thought was going to be the hot food, the hot ticket, and I was ignoring the fact that the animals were telling me what was the hot ticket.
Absolutely. They're going to show you exactly where they're hunting if you're looking for it. Or not where they're hunting, where they're eating. They're going to show you exactly where they're at.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Live oaks are red oaks.
Are they really?
Yeah.
We don't have live oaks around here, so I have no idea
okay.
what
Well,
you're
there you go.
We have a ton of them down here. And you keep, like, I always just hear, like, the red oaks kind of have more, tannic acid in them.
Right.
And so it's just one of those over-analyzing things. It's like maybe you don't have to listen to everything you hear. If the tree's hot, the tree's hot. It doesn't matter what acorn it is.
Yeah, don't think too deep into it. If the animal's going to it, you go to it.
Yeah.
Right.
No, absolutely. Yeah. It was like I said, it was jarring when I saw that because it flew in the face of everything that I had grown up listening,
Right.
And I actually found that spot before I found the others, and I told my buddy, I was like, yeah, I don't see enough sign here. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. I wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I've learned in the past few years that a lot of times the stuff you hear growing up are from a lot of people that tell the biggest deer stories are the ones that have never killed a big deer.
Well, dude, so let's break this hunt down. You kind of mentioned you had some history with this area. You had both these deer. You knew both these deer were in the area, but they were never there by themselves. Was there any kind of special conditions that led you to hunt this location, or was this just I know there's good deer in the area and there's a hot feed tree, I'm gonna swing for the fences?
Yeah. Well, we actually had a pretty good cold front come through. It was a Saturday morning, I'm pretty sure. But we had a good cold front come through, and I mean for that time of year, like I had somebody make fun of it because I made the comment on the video that it was kind of cold that morning, and I mean when it was early September, I mean it can still get up. I know y'all are still dealing with it, but around here, it can still get up in the 80s and stuff. But I think that morning it was high 40s, so everybody was. I mean, if you had any sense, you were going to be in your best tree that morning, and so like you said, it was one of those swing for the fences. It's like if it's going to happen early season, this would be the morning it's going to happen. And so, yeah, it was super great access to it. It's not 80 yards from the truck and can get in there completely without disturbing anything. So, I mean, everything lined up perfect to where I was super confident going into that morning. Not that was going to happen, but I figured I'd at least get an opportunity at 8 deer. That's not really something you go game planning for.
Well, why don't you kind of take it from there? Kind of, take us for a trip. How did the hunt go?
I was a lot slower than I thought it was going to be. I didn't see a single deer till 9 o'clock, I think. And early September, a deer can be all over you before you know it's in the world. I mean, leaves aren't falling yet, so the woods are super quiet. And I just happened to glance up, and the 6-point was the first one I shot, and he was standing just kind of skylining on the ridge right above me. I was hunting 30 yards below the ridge top, and he came in kind of cautious to begin with, but he relaxed as soon as he got under that tree. And my gosh, I've got Dalton cut out. He does all the editing too. He does a lot of work. I'm kind of lazy, but he cut out probably 15 minutes of footage that I had of that deer. I mean, I guess it was a little before 8 he came in. I mean, before 9. But that deer fed around forever. And I used to make fun of Dalton so much about that camera. I was like, that camera's going to cost you deer. I don't care. I said, I'll never let a deer walk because my camera's not on it. Well, I'll be danged if I wasn't waiting on perfect shot where where the deer was in frame and all that. I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this. But that deer fed around for probably 20 minutes. And finally, me and the camera, we got on the same page. And swing and a miss. The mountains of North Carolina, you got to shoot half the time on a mature buck. You better be shooting below that deer. And I mean, I know that sounds goofy, but we're shooting a really heavy arrow and not exactly, a Raven crossbow. So that arrow's going to take a little bit of time to get there. So you got to be shooting where the deer's going to be. And it was just in my head, and it was dumb. I mean, the deer was super calm. He didn't know I was in the world. And I was like bottom of the heart is where I was looking at. It's where I was wanting to hit. And I shot about 2 inches low, shot right under the deer. And I don't know if I was living right at that particular point in my life or what, but that deer, you can see it on the video. He like takes one little step and he actually even reaches back and he smells my arrow. And I'm like, well, this is over. And the whole time, the redneck at that point is coming out. You got hunters and you got killers, and that you got to have a killing mode at some point. That's when the kill mode came out. I said, I've got to make this happen. So I start scrambling around and get another arrow knocked, and had to kind of lean. You can't really see it in the footage, but I kind of had to lean out a little bit. And that shot, as soon as I let it go, I mean, it blew through the deer, but he didn't really act like a deer that's been double lung. They're going to tear out of there. You're going to hear them crash kind of thing. And I knew I'd hit a little back, but it didn't look horrible. But just the way the deer acted, like he ran like 20 yards and then just walked off. And so I was furious with myself. And I was beating myself up in the tree. And I was throwing a little temper tantrum, to be honest, because I hate doing that to a deer. I was convinced at that point that I'd shot him through the guts. And so I'm just sitting there mad at the world. And I called my dad, and I was going to let him know to keep his afternoon open because I was going to have to let that deer lay all day and go after him. And he answered the phone, and I said, I'll call you back. There's deer coming. And at this point, I'm over it. I'm mad, and I was going to sit in the tree for a while just in case the deer went right over the edge of the ridge and bedded down or something. So I was going to stay there for a while. And some doe started feeding in. And I kid you not, I had a doe at 6 yards, and I had tension on the string. I was going to shoot a doe. And because this whole traditional game, there's a lot of head games get played with it, like any kind of hunting. I had to get my confidence back. So I was going to kill a doe. And so I have tension on the string, getting ready to draw back on her. And she looks up, and the look they give when another deer's coming. And she starts looking kind of towards the direction that other buck ran off to or walked off to. And all I see is a rat coming over the hill. I was like, are you kidding me? And this deer, he never really even fed. Like, he went and picked up 1 acre and he started walking down the fence line. And you can't see it on the camera, but he, like I said, I must have been living right or something, but he stopped at the only opening I have on that fence line. And my confidence came back real quick right there. I put a great shot on him. You can't see it on film at all, but shot him and he took off like they're supposed to. And I lost it, man. That's about the most tore up I've ever been in my life. I had to cut the camera off. Like, I looked at the camera, I was like, I'll talk to y'all in a minute, and cut it off. And luckily he did cut that part out because I was about to shake out of that tree. Like, I'm still shaking bad on that footage, but that's not half of what I did. I couldn't contain myself for a little while. and it was bad. Like I had to sit in the tree for another 30 minutes, and to where I felt comfortable climbing down. So finally get down and making all the phone calls. I called Dalton, and he's hunting some public land over in the bordering county, and call my dad and my brother-in-law, just rallying the troops, letting them know I got some work for them. And I knew it was going to be a tough one because, like I said earlier, this place is surrounded by housing developments. So the second deer I shot, the bigger one, he ran towards one of those housing developments, and I was like, "This ain't going to be good." And because it's a 50-50 shot, you knock on the wrong door and say, "Hey, can I drag this deer out of your yard?" On how that's going to go. And I'm walking out, going to the truck, and there's some kicked up leaves right near my truck. And I was like, "There's no way." And I look, and there's a drop of blood in there. And I was like, "Daggum right." So he cut back, going more towards the middle of that property. And I just looked, like, peeked over the hill, and I could see a rack sticking up. And it's just it's a rule with our group. You don't go to your deer before everybody else is there. So knowing that deer's laying
Oh,
there, I
man.
had to go get in my truck and drive off and wait another hour on everybody else to get there. So
Who came
everybody
up
gets
with
to my
that rule?
house. Dalton, he thinks he's boss man or something. He thinks because he does all this work, he gets to call shots. But he's like, he's like, "I got to get this on film." He's like, "Don't you go to that deer without me." He's like, "We're not allowed to trail the deer. We're not allowed to do anything. You get down, you wait on. He has to wait on me. I have to wait on him. This is a team effort." But we get back to my house, and we put the card in the computer and watched the shot over from the first one. It's like, well, that deer's dead. It was a lot better. Why he acted the way he acted, I have no idea. But went up there and got the first deer out, and turned around and came right back, and the second deer, and we went back to get the 6 point, and that deer didn't go 70 yards maybe. Like, why he acted the way he acted, I have no idea. It went in probably liver and came out right behind the shoulder. I have no idea why he acted the way he did, but yeah, I basically started my season and wrapped it up in about a 15-minute span.
So you found both of them without any kind of trouble?
Yeah, it was the second deer I shot didn't go 50 yards, and that one that I thought I put a bad shot on, and 80 yards tops.
Wow. That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was going to be a rodeo getting that first deer, just the way he acted, but I don't know. He's just tough, I guess. I guess they all act different.
Yeah, yeah. And I've seen, I mean, with your setup, I've seen now where, like, if it just zips right through them, they really don't react. They just kind of walk off. It's weird. Maybe does it make any? Did it make a loud noise when it hit him or anything, or was it just like a zip through him and you didn't really notice?
The first one just zipped through him, and
Okay.
like in the past, shooting a lighter arrow, if it if you were hitting in the rib cage, it's not going to zip through them a lot with a traditional bow. Like, you're going to get hung up on the back of the arrow, and it's not going to bury up in the ground on the other side. And this one, the way it went through him, that was the first deer I'd shot with this setup. I wasn't. That's probably a lot of what it is I wasn't expecting the arrow to do that, and so my mind went back to all the other deer I've shot, and if you get rib cage, you're going to know just on the way the deer react or the arrow does. But this one, when it zipped through him like that, I guess my mind just immediately went to the only time the arrow is going to do that is if you go through just soft tissue and stomach matter. But that wasn't the case. It's a bad setup.
Some heavy arrows.
That's right. That's sold me right there.
So you only get 2 buck tags there?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So a week after that, Dalton filled his first one, so he's been taking it slow, but every weekend, well, 3 out of 4 weekends, we've been to Ohio. So it's always been, we joke about it for years because we always go hunt the rut up there. We've joked about it for years that we need to spend a lot more time up there. Well, he was grinning bigger than I was when we found both those deer because he knew exactly where my mind shifted to right there. So I think
Yeah.
we missed the opener in Ohio, and we've missed one other week. But other than that, we've been up there hunting every weekend.
Okay. Are y'all hunting private land up in Ohio as well, or
No,
public?
we hunt public up there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's that's our go-to every year. Last year we went to Kentucky a little bit. We tried it for a couple weekends. I killed a deer opening day there last year. Feed tree. The feed trees work in Kentucky too. But I mean, it's been cool getting to see that season progress. We kind of started out on the early season mode and getting to transition into hunting a more how a buck's supposed to act this time of year. It's been cool going up there every year, and we've had out of the 3 weekends we've been up there so far, we've had a shooter buck and bow range between the two of us every weekend. So we just ain't been able to put it together yet. It's random little fluke things have gone wrong, but we've been knocking on the door up there.
Yeah, and it's just about to get as good as it's going to get here in the next couple of weeks too.
Absolutely, we're gonna have to start the grind of daylight to dark. I think we're gonna start that this Saturday. I got a place in my heart for Halloween weekend. That's one of my favorite weekends to be in the woods. So I guess I'll be in there from daylight to dark on Saturday and Sunday.
Daggum right, man. Yeah, the next weekend starts my first like legit all day sits on a quota hunt. Around here you have to put in for like, special opportunity hunts. All the good hunting property is kind of, you put in for basically a lottery draw as a draw hunt. And
Mm-hmm.
I've got one of those where right about the 7th, 8th, and 9th of November last year, we started having bucks fighting on camera. I was like, oh.
Now is that in Georgia?
No, that's there right here on the Panhandle. I'm in Tallahassee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Now does the rut come in later down there?
yeah, yeah. It's a weird thing. It's kind of like a rainbow across the state of how it comes in. Where I live on the eastern part of the areas that I hunt, it's early November. That's only a couple properties, but more centered for me is like early January to mid January, and then as you get further over towards Pensacola, you're stretching into mid February.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Now the flip side to that is we don't know what cold weather is, so you're sweating all the time, but you do get to kind of chase the rut across the state if you're because like Chase, your rut's now, right? Or been going.
Yeah, in one of my areas, yeah,
Right.
it's going on now.
So y'all like
And
watch chasing November and just laugh at that. Y'all are chasing February.
we're chasing. You could be chasing the entire hunting season in Florida because down in South Florida they're rutting in August. So you could technically chase a rut from August through February in the state of Florida.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. And we get 5 buck tags.
It's Australia.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I'm telling you. If you want to get into stickbow hunting, though, you go to Florida. We go hunt our buddy Jim DeSize down in Fort Pierce, and that is a target-friendly environment. You better bring a lot of arrows. I mean, whether it's from killing pigs to like coons, squirrels, anything and everything, you can kill it in Florida.
Oh yeah.
That's about right. Yeah, yeah. It's a neat place, man. I dog on it a lot because it's really difficult hunting, but I think one day I will not be here and I'll be thinking back to, I'll have 1 week to chase the rut and I'll be like, dadgummit, if I was in Florida still, I'd still have 3 weeks left, but
Right.
it's all got to, and we get five buck tags here too. So there's, you can have a couple stellar mornings like you did and keep running with the punches.
Yeah, I mean, we get the 2 buck tags and we get 4 doe tags here. They went through about a 10 or 15 year stretch where you could kill unlimited does. They started with 4, and if you filled your 4 doe tags, you could go get more. And they got away from that I think year before last, they went back to just 2 bucks and 4 does. But we have a super long gun season in North Carolina. It's going to come in. Our season opens the second Saturday of September and goes out New Year's Day. And I think it's a week or maybe 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. Black powder comes in, and that's 2 weeks, and then everything else from then on is rifle season. And so
You ain't even
we call it the
sniffing
Orange
Florida.
Army. And the Orange Army comes out in full force. And I
Oh,
would
yeah.
give anything if they would put us like on the same scale as Ohio or a state like that. Give us 1 buck tag, and if you want to, I mean, give us several. I'm all about killing does. If you want, like, we'll kill several does, but I really think we'd see the quality of deer improve if they would shorten the gun season and give us 1 buck tag. Now, it would kind of put a damper on my September this year, but
Yeah.
in the long run, I think it would be all right.
Yeah. I think we all have like our like perfect what a perfect hunting season would look like plans for sure. I mean, Florida's
You got politicians making those.
yeah.
That's right.
Florida's gun season. I mean, our black powders are where I'm at's already opened. It opened like October 24th, and then our general gun will open I think around the 8th of November or 7th of November, and it runs through January 20th. So 2.5 months. So almost 3 months of being able to use a gun of some sort for Florida.
That's
So
that's
that's
a lot
long.
of deer lives being lost right there.
Yeah. Well, they've tracked deer last year for Florida, which was like really the first time they were ever able to track how many deer were actually killed because we had the reporting system. And I'm sure some people probably didn't report, but for the most part, I'm sure everybody kind of played their part. And I was actually surprised at how low the number of deer that were killed in Florida last year. I was way off. Like when I found out, I guessed first, and I was more than double off of how many deer actually got taken in the state of Florida. Way less than I actually thought. Oh yeah, way less.
Because I always had this, like, I guess, weird view of Florida before I started going down there a lot, that when you think of your big cities and vacationers and stuff like that, and Florida is not like that at all. Florida is eat up and country boys.
I envision a world in where we're going to have to do a introduction to stick bow hunting episode with you during that time period when you're sitting there and it's snowing out and we're exhausted from gutting deer. We'll pull you out of the the cabin. We'll talk how to get into trad archery.
That sounds like a plan.
We won't be.
I didn't really like that little jab about deer, but yeah.
Well, it's not going to be my deer. It'll be Chase's deer. I don't kill anything, so.
I hear you. I don't care whose deer it is, as long as I get to mess with it.
That's right. That was the equivalent. What I just did there was like the equivalent of like my brother's really big. He's gonna beat you up because
exactly. Yeah. I'm gonna be in a gut pile. Just think it'll be my gut pile.
That's right. Oh man. Well, I appreciate your time, man. We'll for sure I want to have you back on. I think we could break apart maybe some arrow build components to things. I do want to have someone come on and talk traditional archery because that's something that does pique my interest. I know it's something that Chase has kind of asked questions about. I bet you he's as a diehard accomplished compound hunter. I bet you he has some good questions as well. But before we let you go, why don't you give everybody a refresher? Where can they go and find everything that you guys put out there?
Yeah, man, we got the YouTube channel. It's the Stick Boys, and podcast that just launched this year. You can find it on all the big platforms. It's also the Stick Boys, Instagram, Facebook. We're not too creative, just everything. Just you can find us at the Stick Boys. Absolutely love it. Send us messages, reach out to us. We absolutely love getting those. So hopefully we can get a couple more videos uploaded for y'all pretty soon. And I think they drop a podcast weekly. So Yeah, man. Anywhere you look, anywhere on social media, you'll see our dumb mugs on there.
All right, man. I appreciate you, dude.
Thank y'all.
Yep. Thanks for coming on.